Hello, this is Brian Casey, Editor-in-Chief of AmpMini.com, and we're here at the 2015 edition of the RSNA meeting in Chicago. We have with us right now Dr. Rich Duszak of Emory University and Dr. Andrew Rosenkrantz of NYU Langone Medical Center. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
So our topic right now is issues with the workforce in radiology. The job market for radiologists has been pretty depressed for a number of years. There's been a number of calls for steps to be taken, such as reducing the number of radiology trainees. Some people believe that's maybe not the right way to go, but we're going to talk a little bit about this issue and maybe what some potential solutions are. So, Dr. Rosenkrantz, you recently did a study where you addressed this workforce issue, and what sort of things did you find?
Thanks for the question. So just to give some background on how we approach this issue, this is a topic where there have been a lot of opinions expressed, and a lot of this has been based off of surveys, match statistics, to some extent even opinion. So we approached this using large national data sets that we had obtained, and it was quite interesting. So indeed we did see that there's been sharp rises in the number of radiology residency spots going back to the 90s, and that's known, but as we looked into this more deeply and we tried to also correct for just the overall population, we said that the actual growth in the number of radiologists per population had actually only a very small increase, and the radiologist share of the overall physician workforce had actually decreased a small amount. On top of that, we then looked geographically, kind of how these trends were state by state, and there was quite a bit of geographic variation. The situation was different depending on the region, rural, urban, and some states had, in terms of the actual supply, was quite variable, and some states had maybe had more or less of an excess than others.
So we're seeing maybe some geographic inequalities in terms of where radiologists are locating.
Absolutely.
Okay. And what were some of the areas that maybe had a little bit of an oversupply of radiologists and some areas that had a shortage?
Well, I don't know if we can necessarily say about an oversupply or shortage, because that would all be relative to the actual work and volume and number of cases to be interpreted in that level of data in terms of the actual total utilization. Isn't really available at the national level that we looked at, but just in terms of the actual workforce, I think there was a definite rural-urban divide, that there tend to be a greater supply of radiologists in more densely populated regions, and rural areas had actually a considerably smaller workforce per population.
Interesting. Dr. Duszak, do you feel like the calls for academic programs to reduce the number of residents they're training, is that really kind of a realistic way to address this issue, or is this something that maybe will work itself out over time?
Right now, I think it is a very real issue. Most academic medical centers are either cutting back their radiology residency slots or having discussions about right-sizing their radiology slots. And it's always difficult to have a really good answer as to how to approach that when you're in the weeds making those decisions. Right now, there's a lot of reaction to the current job market. It's a very painful position to be a faculty member, and watching our trainees have a very difficult time finding jobs. There are a lot of pressures on graduate medical education funding as well at the institutional level, and it costs us a lot of money to train radiology residents. And so one of my concerns in cutting back too much right now in reaction to the current job market is that we probably will see a growth in imaging in an aging population, and we're going to see some radiologists who are working a little bit longer right now because of the depressed economy during their really build their war chest era, start retiring, and then the job market open up, and then we may find ourselves too short again and having the completely opposite discussion in a few years.
Well, it really wasn't that long ago that there was a perceived shortage of radiologists when, back in the late 90s and that sort of thing.
Absolutely, and having been in a private practice scenario before transitioning to academics and leading a group at that point, there was a very difficult period during the early 2000s when we were giving signing bonuses to trainees to come join the practice a couple years in advance, and now it's gone completely the other end, and I suspect the pendulum will swing back. Whether it's that drastic or not, only time will tell.
For either of you, is there anything we can do to try to smooth out this sort of boom and bust cycle we're in? Should there be maybe more national oversight of how many positions there are? Should there maybe be incentives for radiologists to settle in more rural areas? I mean, what can we do to distribute our workforce a little bit better?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I think data has shown that there's a tendency for residents to end up practicing where they train, where they did their residency. So I think these incentives, if they are implemented, could occur at the trainee level. That I think it's much more difficult, or could be more difficult to distribute later on in one's career. But if you can have a more balanced geographic distribution among trainees, that can, I think, then have implications for where those end up in their practice. And at the level of radiology, I think just because of the nature of our work, I think the options for teleradiology, for consolidation between groups in different regions would also help address some of these issues.
One thing I think we do need to be thinking about is just more staying the course. We tend to be, just like any other physician specialty, a little bit reactive to the job market. People say, oh my gosh, my residents are having a tough time finding a job. Let's curtail the specialty slots. And then a few years later, you're having exactly the opposite discussion. I think some of this is like investing for your retirement, is stay the course, figure out what the right answer is, knowing you're not going to get it perfectly, but stop day trading. And I think ultimately that will get us a more stable environment.
Great. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, signing off for AntMini.com, this is Brian Casey.